Like I said, I'm friends with Melissa. We go to church together. A little bit about myself. I'm 26. I grew up in Minnesota, moved here a couple years ago. Have been married for 2 years to my husband, Brandon. I'm store manager for Victoria's Secret in Cedar Falls Mall. Yeah. So yeah, I've probably seen all of you guys before, all of you girls before. So did you guys all, let's be honest, watch the lecture last night? Or I can read a little recap of myself. But yeah, basically when I was a senior in high school, my parents went to like a counselor for a couple of years, and through their time there and telling him about the family, he was basically like, it sounds like Kim has histrionic personality disorder. And so he read them like a thing about it, and my parents were like, oh my gosh, that's totally Kim, like every little bit of it. So probably a year later, my dad told me, and it was hard to hear that you have a personality disorder, because all any kid wants to do is be normal. I felt like at least I did in high school, but it's really helped me to understand some of my tendencies, why I do things that I do, why I feel the way that I do. Yeah, and so it's just helped me kind of figure out how to live slightly more normal life knowing that I have this disorder. Yeah. So, seriously, any questions that you guys have for me? Yeah.
I'm not sure how to put it, how would you say your disorder usually manifests in your life, or what's the most typical way that it happens?
Yeah, so I would say that the most normal thing is, we've kind of got, I'm going to steal a whiteboard marker. So on the spectrum of emotions, so a 10 is going to be up here. This is the happiest day of your life, your wedding day, prom, whatever, I don't know.
I don't want to peek at prom.
Makes you super happy, or getting asked out by the guy you've had a crush on for 5 years. And then a 0 is your parents dying, super sad. Whatever you can think of that is the worst thing that could ever happen to you, and 10 is the best. 5 is just an average day, nothing exciting happens, whatever. You're just content with life. So most people, I would say, fall in this little spectrum of emotions. On a day-to-day basis, you're kind of living here. I tend to go outside of that normal range of emotions. And that's a pretty typical day for me, is ups and downs. So it's almost like a mild form of bipolar, which my parents at different times in my life have thought that I maybe had. So yeah, I'll give this example. I gave it in the first class. My birthday was just a couple of weeks ago, and my husband is living out in South Carolina. Got a job out there a couple of months ago, and so I spent a week with him. And we, the whole week, we were celebrating my birthday, doing all sorts of fun stuff. We went sailing, we went to the beach, we went up to all these nice restaurants. But the morning of my birthday, we wake up, or he was already awake. I wake up and I was like, "Where's my happy birthday? Tell me happy birthday." And he didn't. And so I started getting frustrated. I'm like, it's been 75 seconds since I woke up and you haven't said anything yet. So, we keep talking about what we're going to do for the day. I went to a shower, came back, still nothing. Hello, this is the most important day of your year. Tell me happy birthday. And so it's probably been 45 minutes since I'd been waiting. And so I was like, excuse me, you haven't said happy birthday. It's my birthday. Do you realize that? He was like, oh, happy birthday. And I was like, this is a big deal. Why? What is wrong with you? You didn't say happy birthday. So finally, he says it, but I was so offended, way outside of the normal range of that people would probably be offended about that. So then we went and we were driving, we went to the beach, we were walking along, and we started arguing about something. And I don't even know what it was. It wasn't that important. But I was so sad that he was arguing with me on my birthday. I started bawling in the car. And I wouldn't talk to him. This is probably 45 minutes that I'm throwing a temper tantrum in the car. Until we are driving along and I see a billboard for helicopter rides. And I was like, it's my birthday, let's go on a helicopter ride. So then like we go on this helicopter ride and I'm like, this is the best day of my life. I'm like so pumped up, totally forgot about like what we had ever been arguing about. But seriously, in probably the span of an hour, I went from bawling in the car to like best day of my life. So I think that those huge emotional spikes for me, outside of the normal spectrum, are kind of how it manifests itself on a regular basis. Yeah, I mean there's a lot more, but yeah.
After you like figured out that you had it, did you like undergo like treatment? Did you go see someone, or was it just like a change in your mindset that you like you realized this was happening and like helped?
So it's a little bit of both. So I went to counseling for probably about a year just to like work through things that had happened or choices that I had made because of this. So it kind of manifests itself in relationships. I had a lot of really unhealthy dating relationships in high school and then into college. And so I went to counseling for like a year and a half, I think, to work through those things. And then through that, I learned a lot about myself and that I do have these tendencies. So now, when I'm sitting there in the car bawling, my husband's like trying to figure out what to do to make me feel better, I'm like, okay, I'm probably overreacting to this. Yes, all of the feelings that I feel are real. I do feel this sad about this, but you know, did he mean it? Did he really mean to hurt me this badly? So I think I can take a step back now and say, this is probably an exaggeration of feelings, and I probably don't need to react this strongly to this situation. Yeah, so I mean, it helps me just to see, yeah, kind of take a step back and then look at what I'm doing or saying or feeling and be a little bit more normal. Yeah.
What's the best way for other people around you to act when you're like having an emotional swing? So should they like try to console you, or will that just make you more angry or something? Or like, what's the best approach? Should they be like, you are having an episode right now, or should they like
that's
confront
probably
it?
not the best. Yeah. Just like any girl, if you're like, you're emotional because you're on your period, that usually doesn't help anything. Yeah. And so I think at different points my husband or my family is like, you're doing this because you're histrionic, and I'm like, no, I have these feelings, like I feel wronged by you. So I think like the best thing, I mean, my husband is 5 all the time. Like his dad got diagnosed with like early onset Alzheimer's. That was like a 4 for him. He really just sticks at that 5. So he's really good to help like calm me down and just say like, but he's like, okay, like, you know, you're sad, like let's work through this. What, you know, he's just like listening, I guess, a lot of listening, and then kind of empathizing with like, even though you might not understand it to the same degree or why it's so offensive, like you can be like, yeah, that does suck. And it won't be very long while you're feeling that until something else happens and you're kind of out of that mode. Yeah.
So if you're like ever at events focused on other people, like other people's weddings or birthday parties, do you like for the most part feel all right, or do you feel like put off because like there's tension on something?
No. So I think part of it is like, I mean, everyone's gonna experience this to different levels, but I'm not one that, like, I'm pretty normal. So if I'm at like a wedding or a birthday party, like, I don't care if all of the attention is on them or like, you know, speeches or whatever. But like if we're out on the dance floor, I'm the one out there just acting like a crazy person, like doing weird stuff. Because that's who I am. But it is fun when other people are like, you're so ridiculous, Kim. So like, but it's not all the time like super everything has to be about me. I mean, I am the store manager for my store, so I love getting up like this. I love getting up in front of other people and speaking and saying things that are valuable or helpful and like teaching other people. But yeah, so I definitely don't care if other people are the center of attention, but I do like, when I can at that event, like sneak in to the front.
has it always kind of been a part of your life? I mean, going back, is there a point where you kind of, and where you started to recognize and where other people maybe started to recognize that like you had kind of changed, or has it really been, have you been the way you have since you can remember?
I think I've been this way forever. I think even as like a little kid, looking back, my parents were like, yeah, they called me a spirited child, I think is the nice way to put it. But I've always loved like, yeah, being like, so when I was little and we would go to the library for like reading times or whatever, I was always sitting up there front and center, like shooting my hand up for questions. Like I just love kind of being that center of attention. And so I think through different things in my life, like different hard things, it probably, and then just being a teenager and being a girl, like I think that it kind of, in high school, really blew up for me. But I don't think, yeah, I really do think that I've probably always been this way, to some extent, yeah.
Does it affect your work in any way? Or have you noticed that it plays a role, a good or bad?
Yeah, so actually one of the tendencies is that people with histrionic personality disorder tend to excel at work. And so yeah, I would say, so my first real job, I worked at Dairy Queen when I was 15. I got a job within 3 months. I'd been promoted to a management position. So like my parents were like dropping me off and picking me up from work, and I had the keys, and I was like in charge of people. I think the oldest person that worked for me was like 30 years old. So yeah, and ever since then I've always been in a leadership position. And I've, you know, I get really bored with jobs easily. I've probably had 20 different jobs since I was 15. The longest I've ever held one job is 2 years. But I've always been really great at it. And I think anytime it starts to get hard, or I maybe am not excelling like super high above everyone else, I'm like, what's wrong? This job sucks now. So I tend to get bored with jobs pretty easily.
Other questions?
Yeah.
So are you like open to people, I know you're a manager, so like do you tell the people you manage like that you have this disorder, is that what it's called?
Yeah. I don't think I've told them, but like I tell a lot of my friends, my husband, like from probably like week 2 of us dating, I told him. So like if I feel like it is affecting my relationship with other people, then I'll tell them. But usually, I mean, at work, I'm not crying at work. I'm not, you know, like I get really excited when we're meeting all of our goals and stuff, and I try to get the rest of the team bought into that excitement. But for the most part, I don't think, like it's not something where like if you just knew me from the outside, you would ever be able to tell. Like you just say, like Kim is a little bit different maybe than the normal person. Like she gets really excited or really passionate. Yeah, I think, I was just actually talking to one of my best friends last night, and she's like, I think she called one of her she's in a wedding this year, and she called her friend that she's in the wedding, she called her neurotic. And I was like, what words would you use to describe me? And she's like, opinionated, and emotional. Those were her 2 words. So I don't think for most people that they are like, yeah, Kim's crazy, she's got this, I'm not schizophrenic or something that's gonna be like, is super out of the ordinary. It's just a little bit more emotions. Yeah.
Is there anything that you found like meditating or reading like yoga or something that like helps stabilize your emotions?
Yeah, so I'm an introvert. I love being in front of people. I love attention, but I love being by myself. So that's how I kind of like, if I'm super happy, super sad, and I can just go be by myself, that kind of just calms me down. And also just spending time with my husband, like he just gets me, even though like he doesn't necessarily understand the crazy mood swings, like, so yeah, if we can just hang out and do nothing for a night, that it's like, no matter kind of what's been going on, that calms me down. Other than that, it's not something that I feel like it's not even something I think about every day. But yeah, I don't know, it's not something that I think about like, oh, I need to really work on this today or make sure that my emotions are in check. And I don't cry every single day and I don't get super excited every single day. But yeah, I mean, I would say hanging out with my husband or talking to him also.
So how did they tell that it was this disorder as opposed to bipolar?
I think the manic and depressive states are very short and they're not quite as intense as bipolar would be. Usually when I try to explain it to people that have no idea anything about psych or have never been to counseling, I'd say, yeah, it's kind of like a mild form of depression or bipolar. And they kind of get that, like, the spikes are pretty high, but they're not manic high. And the drops are pretty low, but they're not, like, depressive low. Yeah.
And keep in mind when we're talking about bipolar, when they're talking about the manic episode, it's the hyperactivity, not necessarily like the elation of mood.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and so I was, because like, I mean, I've researched it a little bit, but it's more just something that, it's kind of just my personality, and so I live with it and try to be as normal as I can be on a regular basis. But I was reading through on Wikipedia, naughty word, I know, but I was reading through on Wikipedia this morning, like, the different, like, symptoms and signs, and I was like, oh, yep, that's me, that's me, that's me, and they're not great things. Like, I can manipulate other people. Like, probably within 2 times of hanging out, I understand what makes people tick, and so I can use that to, like, get you to buy into whatever I'm thinking or feeling, or like for my husband, if I want him to feel a certain way, or like I'm mad at him, or I want to hurt him, or get him excited, I know exactly what to say and what to do to get him bought into that feeling. And I would say that's pretty similar with a lot of people. So, yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but maybe Roger says, are more like women diagnosed with this than men? Because I feel like we're seen as more emotional people anyway, so I don't know if you know.
So I think Wikipedia told me 4 times as many women as men are diagnosed.
Yeah.
And it's something like 2 to 3% of the population. But I bet if you guys thought like, so typically people who are histrionic are called like drama queens or things like that. So I bet you can think of like a person in your friend group or a person at school here who maybe is more emotional than your average person or exaggerates a lot. There's a chance that they could be histrionic.
But please don't go around diagnosing your friends.
Yes.
Any other questions for Kim?
Come on, I know you guys have some questions.
Is there different levels, like do some people have this like very severely and like other varying levels of severity within this disorder?
I think
like,
so.
Where would you put yourself on that?
Yeah, so I think, I mean a couple of things. My family is amazing, and they definitely helped me get through this, but I think that someone whose family maybe doesn't believe in counseling or doesn't believe in, different types of personalities and like that people's brains are wired differently, I think that for them, it would be so much harder to function. And so like knowing that I'm loved by my family for who I am and, you know, my differences is really helpful. But I think my sister-in-law actually might be histrionic, and one of the ways that it manifests itself is kind of in like sexual promiscuity, flirtatiousness, and her family kind of hasn't gotten her help, and she's been through this nasty cycle of like living with different guys. I mean, she's been engaged several times. She has kids with different guys. She never goes without having a boyfriend or living with someone. So I think it's been really negative on her life, and her family just doesn't talk about anything. Pretty much like everything is shoved under the rug, and so I think for her it's been a lot harder, and it's really negatively impacted her life. Whereas for me, I feel like it's just a personality difference. Yeah.
Do you think you have this personality disorder because of genetics or like something like happening in your life or something?
I mean, I think there's probably a lot of different factors, and I don't know if I can say for sure, but I think, kind of like I said earlier, as long as I can remember, I've been this way. So like when I'm trying to think, like when I feel like there's been an injustice, or I see a homeless person, or people suffering overseas, like I feel so much compassion towards them and empathy, and I just want everyone around me to feel that same way. And so I feel like from a very young age, that was kind of, yeah, I can remember those things. Or yeah, getting super excited about things, or super like, you know, sitting on my bed crying at a really young age. So yeah, I mean, I think this has been something that I was kind of hardwired to do, and not something that, yeah.
Do you have any other family members that have like histrionic tendencies?
I don't think so, not in my immediate family. Actually, my aunt, she's the crazy one, of course. You know, every family has that crazy aunt. I know I'm gonna be the one in my family. But yeah, she is, gosh, she's probably in her early 50s. Yeah, and she's super eccentric. So she's done a lot of different things in life. Yeah, she's very, very intense. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if she was histrionic. Yeah, I haven't thought about that before, but she pretty much for sure is. Yeah.
How would you say it affected your high school like romantic relationships?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different for me because I was actually homeschooled from 2nd grade all the way through high school. I like did sports and stuff at the high school, but I just didn't have time. I wanted to work and stuff. So my first real relationship, I think I was a junior in high school when we started dating. Just, I mean, in all honesty, like, so back then when we started dating, I thought like I wasn't gonna have sex before I was married, and he definitely was interested in having sex before he was married. And so like, once I kind of went down that path, like one of the things is kind of sexual promiscuity or flirtatiousness, or like exhibitionist behavior, but like, so stupid things that we would do, like we would be like sitting there at dinner with his family. I remember like putting my hand on his knee and then like moving it to his crotch at dinner with his entire family. And like, looking back, I'm like, why the heck did I do that? Like, that's so ridiculous. But then like reading through these like symptoms, I'm like, oh, that totally fits. So I think I put a lot more emphasis on relationships, and I thought back then that like all guys wanted, and this is something I've had to break myself of, but all guys wanted was sex. Like they didn't care about me as a person, they didn't care, and I think that's a lot of kind of what our culture teaches, is that that's all guys care about. And I've learned that that's not true. They do care about a lot more, but I think as I was seeking their attention from my boyfriends or whatever, like that's always where I would go to, was that sexuality piece. Yeah, so it caused a few very unhealthy relationships at the end of high school and early college. And then I got super lucky and met my husband.
What does your shirt say? Like, I just noticed that.
Yeah, so this was a present from my husband. So I'm sorry for what I said when you tried to wake me up. And I thought it was kind of fitting because the first day of our honeymoon, you know, we're supposed to be super in love and super excited, and we hadn't slept. So the night of our wedding, I think we got like about 45 minutes of sleep before we had to get on the plane to go to Bermuda for our honeymoon. And so we wake up in the morning, and he loves mornings. Like, the sun's awake, so I'm awake, so it's time to play. And that's what he did. He like got up out of bed, like went up, threw the windows open, the sun is shining right in our room, and I was like, wait are you doing? I was so angry. And he was like, oh my, like what did I just marry? It was, yeah, but it was like so intense. And I was like, you cannot wake me up in the mornings that way. I feel very passionate about how I get woken up in the mornings. So now the proper way to wake me up is to cuddle me and scratch my back, and slowly I will wake up and then be in a good mood. But yeah, so that's what that's all about. Yeah.
Is there like any treatment really? Like I know you said you went to counseling for like a year, but besides that, is there any treatment for this?
As far as I know, there's no treatment. Like there's no medication you can take to make it less. I think for people that are maybe like my sister-in-law that are in really unhealthy places in their life, like I definitely think that counseling would help a lot. And just, you have to have a desire to understand yourself and a desire to know like, hey, I'm different than everyone else. And some of these tendencies that I have don't allow me to function normally in relationships. So how do I stop myself from going above and beyond with this emotional stuff? So I really care about those things, and I care about, like, I'm really passionate about knowing who I am and my tendencies. So I think, yeah, counseling is very helpful. Having that desire to understand yourself is helpful. But yeah, I think counseling is pretty much the typical, or therapy, going to see a therapist or something is like the typical treatment. Yeah.
Does it cause you to like argue a lot because you feel so strongly about something?
Oh yeah. I love arguing. I love arguing for the sake of arguing. I remember arguing with a guy about the color of his t-shirt for probably about 2 hours one time. And I knew I was wrong about 5 minutes into it. When he was coming towards me, I thought his shirt was orange, I think. And then when he got up, and he was like, no, my shirt's red. And I was like, no, it's orange. And like, but it was just fun to argue. So yeah, I love arguing. I've thought about becoming a lawyer because I love to debate. I love to prove that I'm right, like, and to get everyone else to understand and see that I'm right about everything. Yeah.
Has that like caused damage to your friendships or like relationships in general because you love arguing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, there are people that just don't get me. Like my dad is so funny because my dad is the same way. I don't think my dad's histrionic, but he loves to argue as well, and he loves to be right. And so I'll start arguing, and my dad's like, "Oh, you're just trying to be right." I'm like, "Yep." And the great thing is my dad loves me for it. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely people that don't understand me and think I'm being really abrasive or rude, or that I don't like them because I keep arguing with them, which just isn't the case. But yeah, I think in high school it was really, in high school and college, like people just don't get me a lot of times, and so, and I hate talking about the weather or surfacey things. I love talking about really deep things and your feelings, and yeah. So when people can't understand that or can't relate to me, or they don't want to be that deep all the time, yeah, it's kind of overwhelming for them to be friends with me. And so I think I had a very, very few friends. I think I have one friend from high school and one friend from college. That's pretty much it. And then I've got like my family and a few like friends from my church now who get me and love me. But yeah, I would say for the majority of my life, I've had very few friends, and that has been really hard. Yeah.
Did you ever experience like high anxiety or stress with like the emotional spikes at all? Was that ever a factor into it?
Not really. Not for me at least.
Okay.
I'm a pretty stress-free person, and I don't let a lot of things affect me, I guess. Yeah, and I kind of just live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'm like, in this moment I'm super happy, in this moment I'm sad, and it's always going to change, and so I don't usually work myself up too much to be anxious about anything or stressed out.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you guys for asking such good questions.